Yo, everybody, how's it going? I am going to be recording a deck tech for all my different decks that I have built in paper for Commander, and we're going to be starting off with my favorite and the one that I have probably sunk the most time and effort into building, which is, of course, Prossh, Skyroot of Kerr. Um, Not a commander that a lot of folks see too often anymore. 10 years ago, this was kind of one of the boogeymen of the format. Um, Still extremely powerful. There's a lot of competition in Jund Sacrifice, but for me, Prossh is really the pinnacle of that. So let's start by going over the commander for anyone who doesn't know. Prossh is a 6 mana, 3 and Jund for a 5/5 legendary creature dragon with flying. And whenever you cast Prossh, you make X01 red kobold creature tokens, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast Prossh. That effect is incredibly important for a couple of reasons. One, it triggers on cast, so unless they have a stifle or an exile ability, you're going to be getting that many. So off the initial effect, you're going to get 6 tokens on cast, which is awesome. And that scales with, for instance, commander attack. So if it dies and you cast it again, and you pay 8 mana, so you'll get 8 tokens, and so on and so forth. Um, Yeah, and we'll get into more of how we use and abuse that ability as we get through the rest of the deck tech. And the final ability, which is also important, is it is a free sack outlet in the command zone. So sacrifice any other creature to give it +1/+0, which we can really use in a couple different ways. That sacrifice, anytime you have a free sack outlet in the command zone, it really enables a bunch of degenerate things. The fact that it's a free sack outlet, it pumps itself, and you get the tokens to sack makes this an awesome aristocrats commander with a lot of combo potential. And this is more of like a mid power, mid to highish power, definitely not CDH, but we do have some combos. For anyone who's thinking about brackets, like they've just released somewhat recently. Right now, this is probably between a 3 and a 4. My goal with building this most recent update to this deck is to make it so that it is still technically like a bracket 3, because right now I have no tutors, no game changers, no land destruction, no extra turns. Um, there are some, like I said, there are some combos, but without the tutors, it is a lot more hit or miss on whether we hit those. So that's what we're going to be going through with this deck tech. All right. So right now the deck is just sorted by card type. So we're just going to be going off like that. So first off, we have Xenagos the Reveler. This is just incredible card. A lot of the let's actually just for a little suspense. Let's flip this upside down, so we don't, or move it off screen, so we don't get free previews. Got to make you guys watch the video to see the next card. So yeah, Xenagos is 4 mana for a 3 loyalty commander. You can create a 2/2 satyr. But the more important ability is you can plus it to add X mana of Gruul in any combination where X is the total amount of creatures you have. So if you have this on board, you cast Prossh, you get your 6 creature tokens plus Prossh, you plus this, and you get 7 mana. So it is actually mana positive to cast Prossh after this. Not to mention all the other ways we have to make tokens or just having creatures around. The ultimate is definitely pretty backbreaking too for your opponents. It's once you get to 6, exile the top 7 cards of your library. You can put any number of creatures or lands from them straight on the battlefield, which is, you know, very strong. So yeah, obviously that's just good in any go wide creature deck. All right, so next we're moving on to the instance. Not a ton in the current build. This is really more of a proactive deck, but we do have a suite of instant speed interaction. We've got Assassin's Trophy and Beast Within, which are just destroy a permanent. This one less than search a basic, but for 1 less mana. And then Fire Covenant, which, first off, we love the dragon aesthetic, that's awesome. But it is a 3 mana instant. You pay X life and deal X damage divided among any amount of creatures. And so it is a one-sided board wipe, but obviously you need to have some life. we really just want to make sure we're not getting attacked. There's no stacks pieces that are preventing sacks or whatever, and just this can be a game-winning card out of nowhere. I mean, game-winning in the sense that if your opponents don't have any creatures in play, it's quite a bit harder to win. All right, moving over to the enchantments. We do have 5. Let's see. Yeah, so we have Impact Tremors, pretty obvious. And whenever a creature enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Prossh, casting Prossh into this is 7 damage. The next time you cast, it's 9. We're making a lot of tokens, as we're going to see throughout the video. Pretty easy to include. Next, we have Goblin Bombardment. Same idea. It's a free sack outlet. It deals damage. Eventually, we do have a way of getting infinite kobolds, so that'll be infinite damage. Same with impact tremors, but this is also allows you to ping off small things, allows you to sack to prevent auras. Just a really strong card in any sack deck. All right, next off we have a more new card, Funeral Home and Awakening Hall. It is a split enchantment room. On the left side is 3 mana. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So that's essentially Zulaport Cutthroat. And for 8 mana, when you unlock it, reanimate all creatures in your graveyard. We just obviously, as a sack deck, we just need as many of these ping effects as we can get within reason. And then the fact that this one is attached to a mass reanimate is just gravy. Next, we have Bastion of Remembrance. Similar to this, it's the same exact effect on the bottom line, just drains an opponent whenever one of our creatures dies, but it also comes with a token. And the fact that it's jamming means it's a little stickier. A lot of board wipes going around these days, and so even if they wipe our board, being able to keep a combo piece, life gain, damage on board can be really cool. And the last of our enchantments, we have another awesome card, Meathook Massacre. X and 2 black for a legendary enchantment. When it ETBs, each creature gets -X, and whenever an opponent's creature dies, we gain 1 life, and whenever any of our creatures dies, our opponents each lose a life. So incidental life gain, if you wipe the board, you're going to deal quite a bit of damage, gain quite a bit of life, and the fact that it's a board wipe that just sticks on the board as creatures come and go makes it pretty awesome to have. And there are some times where you'll cast it for X equals 0 just to get the drain effect on board without, if you're ahead on board, you might want to do that, for instance. All right. Oh, let's see here. Oh, this might be a little bit out of order. We'll just keep going. All right, yeah, it doesn't have to be in specific order. It's not like all enchantments or all whatever do the same thing. We got Farseek. Yeah, it's a ramp. It's a green deck. Play Farseek. It's great. A couple basics, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring. What are you doing if you're not playing these cards in Commander? You better have a very specific reason, like a companion or, yeah, that's about it for casual Commander for not playing those cards. Or I guess if you're in like a colorless deck, you wouldn't play Arcane Signet, but obviously it's good in our deck. All right, moving on here, we have a suite of mana dorks. We have the pretty standard. I'm going to sort these out a little bit. We've got the just 1 mana, add mana dorks. We have the Ignoble Hierarch, Elves of Deep Shadow, Birds of Paradise, and I went with Findhorn Elves just because I like the art, but really I think it's like 40% green in this deck, so we don't want to have too much, only green. We don't want to get stuck on that if we are opening hands, because this technically isn't fixing, it's just ramp. So I just have one of these. You could technically play more, but I prefer the ones that fix. Exalted's great, Flying's great, and yeah, we love the dark. Great set. Moving on, we've got some more mana because this deck is incredibly mana hungry. Let's see, let's do like this. So we've got a couple of ways to sack stuff or destroy stuff to make mana. Calling the Weak, awesome card. 1 mana, sack any creature, add 4, so it's a sack outlet, or 1-time sack outlet, I should say. Adds a big chunk of mana. It's great. Pretty much any. So if you have a 3-drop creature on turn 3, you untap, you blow that up with this. Even if you don't have a land drop, it allows you to cast Prossh, sack a Kobold, get more mana. Turning 1 to 4 is just always great, and there's a lot of times when we just want stuff to die. Culling Ritual might be the most underplayed ritual in Casual Commander. In CDH, it's obviously really great, and pretty much everyone knows about it, but it's a 4-mana sorcery. Destroy each non-land permanent mana value 2 or less, and you get to add black or green for each one destroyed. So, I mean, even on turn 4, say you don't have any mana dorks, in a 4-player game, a lot of the times everyone's got 1 or 2 things. So, um, just getting that big chunk of mana early game to get you started, or just as like a game breaker late game, blows up everyone's Soul Rings, Mana Dorks, Esper Sentinels. Ton of great cards that are, the higher power level you get, the lower the CMC. So if you're playing Battle Cruiser, some crazy high CMC might be a little less relevant. And you know what? I forgot about these cards. We do some other dorks here, or in accelerants. We've got Deathrite Shaman. Obviously, just is a planeswalker. That's kind of the old adage. But we add mana, exile instant sorceries or creatures, and gain life or deal damage respectively. Just does a little bit of everything. Secret Tribe Elder. We really want as many creatures just because it synergizes with the commander if we don't need the mana. There's plenty of stuff that really benefits from having creatures dying. So being able to turn that into a land if you need it, or just by having a free sack outlet on board, or a sackable creature on board, can be really versatile. So I like to keep him in. And then Tinderwall is an incredible card too. We were just, a lot of the times we just really want to get Prossh out as soon as possible. So being able to go this on turn 1, untap, play a land, and have 4 mana on turn 2 to get any sort of our acceleration going can be huge. Or if we cast like a Greater Good and draw 13 cards, this is a ritual in hand because, you turn 1 green into 2 red, which is awesome. We don't really care about the fact that we're losing a permanent to ramp. You're basically playing Rite of Flame, but as a creature, which is totally fine. All right, next we have Cryptolith Rite. Completely insane in this deck. Depending on when you get it down, being able to turn all these useless kobolds you make into birds of paradise, incredible. Any incidental tokens you make, incredible. It's just as simple as that. Mana wins games, and this is one of the best ways to get ahead on mana. Alrighty, next we have, I guess we can do Phyrexian Altar. And while I'm at it, let's see if we can find the other one that goes along with it. Because I guess we'll go through all the main 3 combo cards on the deck. Because this is really one of the main reasons why you would be playing Prossh, is for this awesome combo potential. So these 3 cards are the 3 main outlets for creating infinites with Prossh. The first and most notorious is Food Chain. Food Chain plus Prossh is just a 2-card infinite. I tend to think of it as a 1 card because this card always exists for you in the commander format. So as soon as you find this, you can basically go infinite. It's a 3-mana enchantment that allows you to exile one of your own creatures to add X plus 1 mana to your mana pool, where X is the CMC of that creature or mana value. So, for instance, let's say we've got 6 mana, Food Chain's already in play. We cast Prossh. We get Prossh plus 6 tokens. You exile Prossh to Food Chain. That's 7 mana. Goes in the command zone. You've got 6 kobolds. You exile them all. The kobolds have mana value of 0, so 0 plus 1. They're all 1 mana, so that's 13 mana for only creature spells. You recast Prossh for 8 mana, so now you're down to 5. You make 8 more tokens because you're paying more for the commander checks. That does mean you get more tokens. So you've got 5 left. Now we exile it. That's 7 more. Now we're back to 12. 12 plus 8 is 20. And if you keep going, this is an infinite loop because the extra kobolds you make pays for the commander tax with Food Chain. And so at the end of the day, you end up with infinite casts, and you always have more uh, kobolds than you need. So eventually, you'll end up a spot where you have 100 million kobold tokens, and then from there, any blood artist effect, any impact tremors effect is a win. Any creator effect is already probably a win, but um, yeah. So that is the easiest way. This is also just a great card. Obviously, exiling is a huge downside, which is why it's not just in every sacrifice deck ever. But there are some times where you just need to exile your stuff just to get that boost of mana. The downside to just playing this before you're ready to combo is that a lot of the times people will see this and they automatically know that their game is on the line. So um, I'm either casting this to win or casting this because I'm so far behind, and it's either cast it and try catch up, or um, don't cast it and then you're already behind. The other combo, pretty similar, is the double altar combo with Prossh. For those who don't know, Ashnod Altar is just 3 mana, sack a creature at double colorless, or 3 mana, sack a creature at one color, or at one of any color. So with these, you can actually also just go infinite. So cast Prossh, get your 6 tokens. You sacrifice one of the, so you have 7 creatures in total. You sacrifice 3 of them to add your Jund. Then you have 4 left. You sacrifice all 4 of them to Ashnod's Altar. Excuse me. So 4 times 2, that's 8, plus 3, that's 11. So you have 11 mana. Recast it for 8 mana. Then you end up with 9 total, and you have, 5 mana floating left. And you get 8 tokens. Same thing. You use 3 of them for the Phyrexian, the rest in the Ashnod, and you just keep going and going. You're going to end up with infinite kobolds, infinite colored mana, and infinite colorless mana. And then again, from there, there's a multitude of cards that just win the game. But again, we don't have any tutors, so the odds of you having both of them at the same time pretty low. The odds of you finding food chain pretty decent because we do have quite a bit of card draw. And then obviously just free sack outlets and outlets that sack for mana are just going to be good with the fair game plan that we have with the deck. Speaking of fair, here's a pretty unfair card in casual. We have Doubling Season. Pretty ubiquitous. Doubles the amount of tokens you make, doubles the amount of counters that you put on your permanents. Pretty good. So yeah, you should get on the original cast, you'll get 12 kobolds. On the next cast, you spent 8 mana, so you're gonna get 16. And make sure you count the total you would get, including the tax, and then double it, because it's not like you get the original 6, double it, and then it's nothing like that. So you're gonna see a lot of token makers in the deck, and Doubling Season's great. All right, speaking of token makers, we're getting into that section now, so we're going to go over all of those. Let's do it. We'll start with these 3 because they are all, in a way, a similar effect. This is one of the fair game plans of the deck, is creatures that create a token on each player's upkeep. So Dragon Broodmother, Tentrue Dryad, and Beledrose Witherbloom. This one gets you 1/1 dragons with Flying Devour 2. This one gets you 1/1s. Once you have 10 permanents, they actually are 3/3 saplings. This one gets you a pest. And so just the fact that you play these down, go around a turn cycle, you get a bunch of tokens. These tokens are 3/3s, which is huge. These tokens gain you life. And these tokens are flyers and sack outlets. So if you have anything that's like whenever something dies, when it sacks, draw a card, you can just go play this. Player 2's upkeep, make a token. Player 3's upkeep, make a token. That token's devour triggers. It sacrifices a token made on player's 1 turn. Player 1's turn. Oh my gosh. And that becomes a 3/3. And the second one dies, you draw a card, and then you can just keep going around, or you can just end up with 4 flyers. It's basically a Bitter Blossom on every player's upkeep. Super underplayed card, to be honest. Pretty much only see it in Dragon decks, but I like it a lot. Oh, and then obviously the last thing about Beledrose is if you ever have more than 7 lands, it's mana neutral because you can pay 10 life on tap every land you control. So you play it, untap everything. huge mana burst. You can also do that on your opponent's turn if you have some specific need for that mana, but we're pretty instant light, so not typically what you want to go for in our version of the list. Alrighty, we got some more tokens. We'll go for these two next. Actually, we'll do one at a time. Chatterfang, another great. Any token deck should be playing this. Anytime you make any tokens, you make that many squirrels, and you can pay X mana, sacrifice X squirrels to give plus X minus X. Just more bodies to sacrifice from all of our permanent makers. It's removal. It's technically a pump spell as long as you're minding the plus X minus X. Just a great card. No complaints. Moving on to, let's go for the next category. These are our treasure makers. Four very awesome cards. We have Worn Soul Trader, which is essentially Phyrexian Altar, except you have to pay a life, and instead of adding a mana, you add a treasure, which in general, treasure is better than a mana, unless of course your opponents have Collector Roof or something that denies artifacts. But if you like, you have Chatterfang plus War and Soul Trader. Oh, actually, yeah, we'll touch on that. We'll circle back to that idea because that's actually a little deeper than I wanted to get to right now. But yeah, so you play Prossh, you have this out, sack the 6 kobolds, now you have 6 mana, rebates the whole thing. Not quite infinite by itself, especially because it costs life, but just turning useless tokens into treasures is always good. Pitiless Plunder, whenever another creature dies, create a treasure. The important thing there is it doesn't say non-token, so you play Prossh. Prossh is the built-in sack outlet, sack all your tokens, make 6 treasures. Again, more mana the better. These two together are actually really, really incredibly good because this creates a token off of its own ability. This creates it when it dies. So if these 3 things are in play and you sacrifice a kobold token, you're gonna get 2 treasures. If you have a Zulaport, to negate that too, you can just pretty much keep going, sacrifice Prossh, sacrifice all your things, get double tokens, recast it, and you're not going to roll the life because every time something dies, you're going to gain life. And yeah, a little bit slower version of Pitiless Plunder, quite a bit worse, but still strong if that's worth playing, is the Mahadi Emporium Master. This is a 3 mana 3/3, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a treasure for each creature that died this turn. This card is pretty busted. Not quite as good, but there's gonna be a lot of turns where you're gonna be cycling through your commander a couple times, maybe sacrificing 6, 10, whatever creatures, and just having this as, all right, well, we tried to go for it, or we just got ahead and we ended up with these tokens. Great, we'll go for it next turn, get a bunch of triggers. You might have something like a Marionette Master where you get them all at the end of turn, you sack them all, you win the game, or burn them out. Treasures are good. And lastly, my favorite card ever printed, Ruthless Technomancer. It's a 4 mana 2/4 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature you control. If you do, create a number of treasures equal to that power. And you can pay 3 mana and sacrifice X artifacts to reanimate a creature power value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it can't be 0. Yeah, so this thing is the Swiss Army knife of any treasure deck, any sack outlet deck. It is always the sack outlet on ETB, so you can always at least get a little bit ahead. That's pretty much worst case scenario. Like, oh, I have to sacrifice my 3/3, but next turn I'll have 3 more mana. Great. That's the floor. Or it's like you play, you've got some treasures, you reanimate something. Like Pitiless Plunder has a power of 1, so that's something that's super easy to reanimate. It's only costs essentially 4 mana if you're sacking a treasure to get this back. But you notice too, for the top ability, it says power. Power is everything that matters for this card. And Prosh's sack outlet cares about power. So just for instance, this is a level 1 line. You cast this, get your 6 tokens, get this, sacrifice the 6 tokens to this. It's an 11 power creature. You cast Technomancer, sacrifice your commander, you get 11 treasures. Yeah, go from there. Do what you want. No. So yeah, plenty of stuff to do with that. I love this card. Huge burst, huge value. If you're generating enough artifacts, which based on the last like 3 cards I showed you, we definitely are. It's good. Another card that I think is criminally underplayed, definitely better in this deck, obviously, but Carrion, which is a 3-mana black instant. Are we losing focus here? I know you guys probably can't read the cards, but um, yeah, I'm trying to say the name of everything, and I am going to be also posting the deck list in the comments, so we can go back to that if you want, and all these cards are going to be there. I keep my deck list updated. Anytime I make any changes, I try to keep it going in Moxfield, so definitely follow me there if you want to stay up to date on any of the decks or any of the deck changes that I'm making. But yeah, anyways, to this card, Carrion is a 3-mana instant. As an additional cost, sack a creature you control, and you put X01 Maggot. I believe they're black maggot creature tokens, where X is equal to that creature's power. So same thing as Technomancer. Sack all your tokens. Prossh is huge. You sack Prossh, you get a bunch of tokens. That, you feel like you're trading a huge dragon for these things, but it's like, oh, I have I'll say like a Pitiless Splendor. Well, while this is all going on, so cast Prossh, 6 tokens. 6 tokens died. That's 6 treasures. You sacrifice Prossh. That's 7 creatures. So you have 7 treasures. You somehow recast Prossh for 1 more mana from something else. 8 more, plus the obviously plus the 11 tokens that we got from the original cast. So then you end up with 19 tokens. Sack them all, 19 mana. So definitely Carrion a card I am very fond of. Alrighty. Looks like we're getting a little bit more mixed up in my piles. I'd like this to be a little more organized. Nature's Lore, 2 mana, ramp spell, play land ramp. As much as I want to play only creature ramp, in casual, there's so many board wipes, so you gotta have some sort of stable mana. All right, I'm gonna skip over the lands. We're gonna go through all the lands last. Wild Growth, basically 1 mana Llanowar Elf, but doesn't die to, Wrath of God. Nothing too specific beyond that. Enduring Courage is a pretty interesting card. It's basically, I think it's Ogre Battlemaster. Yeah, just let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's 4 mana, 3/3 enchantment, Dog Glimmer. Whenever another creature enters, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. And then when this creature dies, it comes back as a non-creature enchantment. So it doesn't have its power and toughness. It's not a creature, but it does still have the passive effect. This is good for a couple reasons. One, it's a payoff if you have your infinite, because you're going to make infinite number of tokens with haste and 2 power, so you can actually swing in for lethal. It's also super good with all of our Cryptolithorite effects, making it so that when we make a bunch of tokens or we play out our creatures, they have haste so that we can immediately tap them for mana. And yeah, having haste on a creature that's hard to deal with and it pumps is all awesome. Eternal Witness. If you play Commander, you know Eternal Witness. And if you don't, it's Eternal Witness. It just brings back a card from your graveyard and on a creature. All right. So, as I had mentioned earlier in the video, a lot of what I wanted to do with this deck was to kind of prove that I could make technically a lower bracketed deck while still making it as strong as possible. And these 2 cards are my tutors. I know there's combos in it, so it's probably going to end up still a 3 or 4, but for the brackets, I'm pretty skeptical that, this is going to be the final approach, and just a lot of the delimiters that they use to determine power level, I think, are pretty unassociated with casual gameplay. So, yeah. So, anyways, these could just easily be demonic, vampiric, and great. But we wanted to make it a little bit less powerful, I guess, but also still maintain that ability to find a specific card selection without technically searching a library. So it's a loophole. That's the point. So the two ones, Plunge into Darkness is a Entwine card. You get two options. It's either a free sack outlet on any number of creatures you control, which gains you 3 life per sacked creature. Cool. Um, uh, that's great. Life gain can be good. Sometimes you just need life. The other part is you can pay X life and look at the top X cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, and you exile the rest. But if all you need is a food chain or an Ashnod's altar, then roll the dice, or it could just be pay 4 life and it's just an impulse, or pay 1 life and it's you cycle it. So it's never really a dead card. Yeah, definitely not demonic tutor, but the fact that it's an instant speed tutor is pretty great. Tainted Pact is pretty much just better. So it's a 2 mana instant. Exile the top card of your library. You can put that card into your hand unless it has the same name as another card exiled this way. Repeat to put a card in your hand which shares the name. So we aren't fully. This is something I'm trying out. I'm not fully committed to if making it work right now. I do believe I have multiple basics. Um, so the thing to watch out for there is if you hit multiple basics, even if they're the same name, um, you are gonna end up fizzling the spell. So technically, the best way to do it would be like right now I have 5 basics in my deck, no mountains. So what I would do if I wanted to, make this card perfect would be, which I could do, I probably should do, and yeah, but would be you change this to like a mountain or any other a card that's not in the deck. Change these two to snow lands because they're technically different, and then every card is this different. Um, but yeah, so how the card actually works is if every card is completely different, you exile the top card of your library. You decide if you want to keep it or not. If you want it, it's in your hand, great. If not, it goes in exile. Flip the next one. Rinse and repeat until you find the card you want. And because we're not solely reliant on one specific card to win the game, we're not worried about exiling past stuff. Um, but yeah, uh, I guess this is sort of a real-time realization that not having the snowlands for the mana base is actually going to make this card work. So yeah, this is actually a pretty good learning point for me. So I am gonna have to fiddle around a little bit, and most likely by the time you guys see the deck list, I'm gonna have updated the basic lands to include the snow so that this card actually functions as intended. And if I decide that's not gonna work, then I'm gonna have to find a card to replace it. Alrighty, so we are throwing a bunch of cards away. And you're probably wondering, well, your commander doesn't draw cards. You're gonna run out. Well, that would be true if I didn't have card draw in my deck. So let me go over everything that I have. Sorry. Let's actually include that one. Yeah, I know, I'm so organized. It's just crazy. I just love making you guys sit here. I mean, for anyone who sat through my 35-minute video so far, props to you. You are cool. Or you love Prossh more than I do, and you just need every bit of Prossh content you can get, which in that case, we could definitely be friends. Yeah, so let's go through our card draw here. This deck does not have a lot of small incidental card draw. It tends to be that most of our card draw comes from the tokens dying on this. So first we have Liliana Standard Bearer. It's a 3/1 zombie knight with flash, and when it ETBs, draw X cards where X is the number of creatures that die this turn. Okay. As you know, a lot of what we're doing and the whole point of this deck is to cast Prossh, get a bunch of tokens, turn the tokens into mana or treasures or whatever, and do that a couple times. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things die. Cast this in, and you will draw that many cards. A cool thing you can do is say only like 2 things have died and you just need more mana, and you have a sack outlet out. You can cast this, trigger on the stack, sacrifice this because Standard Bear says draw X cards where X is the number of creatures that died, not other creatures. So you can always sack this before the trigger is off to get 1 extra card because maybe when it's in play, it's only a 3/1. Next, we have an awesome MDFC, Disciple of Freyles, 6 mana, 3/3 Elf Druid. ETB, sack another creature, gain X life, draw X cards for X of the creature's power. So we have free power in the command zone. So similar to Technomancer, you just play this, sack all your dudes, sack this, or cast this, sack this, gain 11, draw 11. You'll find more mana to recast it. Yeah. And if it's an opening hand, it is a 3 life forest or a tap land. So pretty much free to include. Then we've got a sort of a mix of Zulaport Cutthroat or like Fecundity, or we'll get to it, but it's a 4 mana 4/3. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you have 2 options. If I sack it in a main phase or end step or anything outside of combat, it's just damage to everybody. But what you can do is, you have your free sack outlet. You've got all your kobolds or whatever. Attack with everything. Doesn't matter if no blocks or anything goes through. You just sack instant speed and draw a card. So this is super versatile. If you're ahead, you need damage, or you're behind, you need card draw. I am a fan. This is a card that isn't so much synergy, more so just a good card. Not a great top deck, but Black Market Connections does enough of everything that for now I'm fine with it. There are probably other options you could run, but I like a sticky enchantment and being able to get treasure, card draw, or a token. We can use all those very easily with this deck. Alrighty, we've got Liliana Dreadhorde General, and let's actually get a couple of cards here because they're all serving the same purpose. We can save a little bit of time. Liliana, Smothering Abomination, Fecundity, and Moldervine Wreck. These 4 cards all have one thing in common, and it says whenever a creature dies, this one says sacrifice, but we've got that. Draw a card. There's minor differences to each, but the big thing is the fact that these do not specify tokens in our token deck. Huge. So a couple of small things to note is this is a flyer, so that's great. You do have to set. It is a sack on upkeep, so worst case scenario, you just sack itself and draw a card. Otherwise, you just leave 1 token to sack. This one gains a life per creature you control dying. Awesome. We love a little bit incidental life gain. We'll go to Fecundity last because that one's a little more interesting. Liliana is basically that same passive, but you can also make a zombie, make each player sack 2 creatures, and if you -9, the game's over because your opponent's going to end up with 1 permanent of each type. Fecundity, why it's interesting is it's actually a universal effect. So anytime any creature dies, their controller draws a card. So similar to like Mana Flare or something that any group hug effect or symmetrical effect, this isn't something you want to just play out on turn 3 just for the fact that you can, because unless you're ready to take advantage of it, you're giving your opponents a lot of free cards. Skull Clamp, similar to Ewit, one of the most played cards in the format. We make a ton of X1 tokens in our deck, and being able to pay 1 mana to draw 2 cards is completely ridiculous. And for the creatures that have more than 1 toughness, I think we've already gone through like 4 sack outlets, so in one of the command zones. So this is going to draw you an obscene amount of cards for a very low amount of mana. Let's see. This is not a card draw. Okay. It's just Yawgmoth. That was another well-known one. So Yawgmoth, it is a sack outlet that only costs you a life. It puts -1/-1 counters on creatures your opponents control, so it shrinks them or removes them, and it always draws a card. This is all good. There are going to be times that the proliferate by paying 2 black and discarding a card. Not a ton of synergies there beyond the counters you're putting on with Yawgmoth, but sometimes sometimes you need the discard, and this card is a ridiculous amount of card draw. Okay, we'll go that one last. I mean, you've already seen it, so if you know the card, it's not a surprise. But this is Plumb the Forbidden, 2 mana instant. It basically just says draw a card and lose a life. But there's a big old paragraph there. Its initial cost: when you cast it, you may sacrifice one or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature sacrificed this way. Yeah. This card does a ton of things. The first thing is it's not like a big spell that can just be countered, because it is putting multiple copies of this spell on the stack. It's basically got Storm, but instead of the amount of spells you cast, it's counting sacrifices. So that's great. And Season of Lost is a card that I mean, it's from Bloomborough, so it's obviously pretty new, but it's just crazy in this deck. It gives you 5 modal points, I guess I'll say, per spell. You can spend 1 to make everyone sack a creature. 2 is draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn, and 3, each opponent loses X life for X number of creatures in your graveyard. Let's see, to pull out my list, right now we have 32 creatures, so that definitely can just end the game. The mode that I've tend to use the most is, there's 2 things: either basically 5 mana, everyone sacks 5 creatures, pseudo board wipe, or it's 5 mana, everyone sacks a creature, and then I draw a card for every creature I control that died this turn. So baseline for that is, if I have 1 creature in play, I'll draw 2 cards, sack a creature, everyone sacks a creature. That's fine. But if I happen to have played Prossh, we've done the whole sack thing, double the amount of card draw per creature that's died per turn. This card has an incredibly high ceiling and still a pretty decent floor of just sacrificing a couple creatures. All right, let's keep going. Let's get all of our. Let's go for. Sorry. Let's just go over some of the easier cards. Toxic Deluge, play board wipes. Spot removal is way worse than it used to be. You just need to wipe the board. You're going to fall behind. You're going to get board wiped. They're going to get ahead. You need something to catch back up, and 3 mana to do that is awesome. Let's see here. Conversely, Heroic Intervention, definitely worse than it used to be. Doesn't stop Deluge, doesn't stop Farewell, doesn't stop Blasphemous Edict, but there's still a lot of people just playing Blasphemous Act, Wrath of God, Supreme Verdicts, or just swinging into trade and you're just saving your stuff, or someone swords your commander or whatever, just hexproofing it. Still, it's gotten worse, but it's still viable enough for me for what I want with my decks. Let's see here. This card should have been in an earlier section, but Endrick Sar is another token machine. 5 mana, 2/2 human. Whenever I cast a creature, make X 1/1 thralls for that mana value. With the downside of, if I control 7 or more thralls, immediately sacrifice it. Something to know with this card is the bottom ability will trigger the second you have 7 thralls. There's no priority to interact with that. So if I cast a 7-drop after this, he's dead. This is pretty sick with Prossh, because 6 mana, you make your 6 fellas, you make 6 thralls, you sacrifice the 6 to Prossh for whatever million reasons I've already gone over, and then you're not worried about him sacrificing himself. And with the 32 creatures we have, you're going to make a ton of tokens, and just having more tokens is always good. Another card, this is basically Cryptothrite on a creature. Costs 1 more mana. It's a 3/3 with Vigilance. I would say it's better, just because it's a creature we can sacrifice, still have that effect, but also sometimes you'll go turn 1 Birds of Paradise, turn 2 this, and even if nothing else, this is just a 3 mana dork. Taps for 1 mana. So Cryptothrite by itself does nothing. So really like this card. having a couple of these is very important. You don't want to have too many because they don't stack, but this is definitely probably the best version of this card. And now we're getting into some damage. Let's go through the easy ones. Marionette Apprentice, Zulaport Cutthroat, Blood Artist. All different, flavors of the same card. This one makes a token. It counts artifacts, but it doesn't gain life or care about your opponents. This one um, cares about itself dying, and it gains you life. And this one cares about any creature dying, but it doesn't hit each opponent. But we don't really care about it. As long as it's 2 mana, and so long as, it's ending the game, these are all great. So now we're going to get into a little more specific. First, we're going to start with Agate Instigator. It's a 1/3 Lizard Rogue with Offspring 2. So for 2 more mana, you can make a 1/1 copy of it. Whenever another creature enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yeah, so obviously impact tremors on a creature that is also, 2 impact tremors, because the fact that the token's 1/1 means nothing to us or whatever. So if you have 2 of them, you cast Prossh, that's 7 creatures. 7 times 2, that's 14 damage if you go Prossh into, or Offspring into Prossh. And yeah, that's, a level 1 play. Obviously can go much crazier than that. Let's go for Orcus Bowmasters. I'm not sure if I want to be playing it, but this card is just very strong and very punishing for anyone who's trying to draw cards. And if your opponents aren't trying to draw cards in Commander, then you're probably already doing, pretty all right. And yeah, the fact that it gives you tokens per trigger is amazing. The fact that it's an army isn't a big deal because we have free sack outlets, so you can make more use and basically treat them as individual tokens rather than just a growing token. But if you do get one big token, we do have stuff like the Technomancer or Freyalise that can pay off for having a single big creature. So this card's just very good and does an absurd amount for 2 mana. Speaking of absurd cards, Mirkwood Bats is disgusting. Whenever you create or sack a token, each opponent loses life. So cast this, cast your commander, make 6, that's 6 damage. Sack all 6, that's 6 damage. If you have Padis Plunderer out, it's you play this, you make 6, that's 6 damage. You sack all 6, that's 6 damage. Plus you make 6 treasures, that's 6 damage. You sack all the tokens, that's 6 damage. So that would be 24 damage. Plays super good with all of the token makers we have. Obviously, plays insane with treasures. This is a must kill card for your opponents. This does too much damage for 4 mana. Then we're gonna get down to these 2, Mayhem Devil and Goblin Sharpshooter. Whenever any player sacks a permanent, ping something. So that includes us, our opponents, includes treasures, lands. It does everything. It's very easy to use this as a removal spell for any problematic creatures. It does essentially the same amount of damage as like a Zulaport, Cutthroat, or Blood Artist when we're going off ourselves, and also stops our opponent's infinites if that requires them sacrificing anything. Goblin Sharpshooter, on the other hand, is a little bit more niche. It's basically just tap to ping, but whenever a creature dies, it untaps. So if your opponent has a million 1/1s, tap, kill a 1/1, untap, tap, kill a 1/1. So all X1s your opponents will ever have are dead. The other cool thing you can do is you can turn it into a Mayhem Devil. Essentially, we're going to go back. So I'm sorry, not a Mayhem Devil, a Phyrexian Altar. I apologize. So let's say we have these 2 out. So now all my creatures tap for mana. I tap this for a green mana, which you're allowed to with this, obviously. But this doesn't untap. Well, I have my commander out. I have 6 kobolds, sack a kobold. A creature dies, untap. Tap it for blue, or I don't know, I said black. Sack another kobold, untap. Tap. So it is a pinger. It combos with the mana tappers, and I just really like the art, so it's in the deck. What are you gonna do? All right, let's see here. I think we're getting down to just mana and a couple other spells. Actually, just one other spell. The rest is mana. Fill the Profane. It's 4 mana, kill a creature, planeswalker. Way above rate, but the downside is you have to play a 3 life swamp, and you got to play more removal in a deck, like in a combo deck like this, where you want to play as many synergistic cards as possible. Being able to have one of your land slots be a murder is totally fine. All right, down to the lands. Because I'm sure you noticed, I'm playing a ton of MDFCs. We are relatively land light. Looking at my list, I have. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was thinking of a previous iteration. I used to have only 30 lands, but this is 33 plus the 2 MDFCs, which definitely don't be afraid to play those out as lands. Let's see. Let's get all of our interesting lands. We're gonna do utility lands versus mana lands, just because mana lands, you know, they are what they are. There's nothing specifically crazy. Yeah, this is a semi-budget. Like, I mean, for some people it's not. For relative power level, this is somewhat budget. We have Reflecting Pool, Twilight Mire, Sulphur Springs, Blazemire Verge. We have all of the fetches and shocks in color. So pretty solid mana fixing, especially because we have multiple turn 1 plays that we want to make sure we have the green mana for. Command Tower, this is pathways. Some of this was just cards that I had, so definitely not fully optimized per se, but you know, as long as they're untapped, and you'll make it work. Exotic Orchard, awesome card. Carpusian Forest, Llanowar Wastes, and am I playing the? Oh yeah, I already showed the Sulphur Springs. We got the 3 Pains. We have 2. I don't think we have the third one. Yeah, we just have the 2 Surveil lands. Just anytime you have an extra fetch and you just don't want to just do nothing, to be able to turn into a Surveil 1 is incredible value. Let's see, we've got a Woodland Cemetery, nothing special. Undergrowth Stadium, you have a Maya. Yeah, just, if you're more optimized, you probably wouldn't run this, but I've got plenty of non-green lands, and I want to make sure I have as much green as possible. What else? Let's go Cinderglade, just another fetchable red. This is basically replace. This probably would be the commercial district, the red-green Surveil, but just don't own it right now. And then we have 5 basics. There's not really a ton of stuff that cares about the basics, and I have a ton of utility land, so that's kind of where I ended up. Not running a mountain because, like for instance, looking through the deck, not really a ton of red. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and a lot of them are on higher mana value cards. So by the time we get to that, we have enough, treasures or fetch lands so we can find at least one red source to make it work. And then lastly, we have our utility lands. First off, we have the Spymaster's Vault. Very strong card. It's untap if you have a swamp, and then you can pay black and tap it to make target creature connive X, where X is the number of creatures that die this turn. It's ridiculous. So I've said this a million times. Play Prossh, stack all your dudes. That's 6 deaths. Tap this, connive 6 times. That's 6 loots for 2 mana. Incredible. But also it's on, like, if you have 6, that's on average probably like 4 counters, because we only have 33 lands, so that's a 2/3 chance per card. Yeah, it's just insane card selection. On the downside, if sometimes it's tapped for just a black source. Then we have the green version of it. You need a forest to make it untapped, and you can make a copy of any permanent in your graveyard. There are a ton of permanents that we want to have that, if they end up getting discarded or milled, we just want to copy. Like, for instance, turning this into a food chain is absurd. Sometimes we just need a blood artist or an altar. Yeah. Just be careful making it a copy of Planeswalkers. Yeah, you can't minus loyalty if there's no loyalty on it. You can go up, but you can't go down. Next, we have one of my favorite cards the last couple of years, Lazadep Quarry. Uh, it's a desert. You can tap for colorless. You can sack a creature to add a mana of any color. So that's awesome. Just a sack outlet on a land that actually makes colored mana. Pretty much makes high market irrelevant. The other ability, which is super good, is X2 tap, sack a desert, exile a creature from mana with mana value X from your graveyard, make a 4/4 copy as a sorcery. So it's reanimate, it's a sack outlet, and it's untapped, and it's relatively cheap. Three Tree City, the dream is that you name Kobold and you make quite a bit of mana. This one is kind of, play to your taste. Any time you can get a colorless land to randomly be, I guess if you have six, it would be tap. If you pay 3 mana to make 6 mana. So there's also the crazy high rolls where you get doubling season or, but yeah, it's good. Colony Garden. It's a land and it makes a creature. It mixes your own plant. Free creatures are free. Same thing here. Kirkkeep. Just make more tokens. Works well with the 3/3 city. Sometimes you just need something to sack to draw a card, or just a chump blocker. And it's thematic, obviously. And then finally, Westvale Abbey. Pay 5 and a life to make a 1/1. We love tokens. And then also it says 5 mana, sack 5 creatures to transform it into Ormondal Profane Prince, 9/7 flying lifelink indestructible haste. Those are all obviously pretty decent keywords. So, you cast your commander, you make 6 creatures, you turn your land into a game-winning threat. Okay. So yeah, this has already been an hour-long video. If you stuck along this long for one of my first videos, then I yeah, that blows my mind. So I appreciate it. If not, and I'm talking to myself, then I enjoyed. I guess I enjoyed talking about my deck for an hour. So appreciate everybody who gave this video a chance. Prossh is awesome, and if this video gets any amount of views, likes, comments, any sort of attention, I have got quite a few other decks that I would love to do a deck tech on, and you can listen to me ramble about my decks and go through everything that I can think of within that hour time frame. And yeah, it's a good time. Love Magic. If you're here, you obviously do too, and let's keep talking about it. Check out my Moxfield, like, subscribe, all that other stuff, and have a great rest of your day.